Low energy after 60 triples your risk of falls and hospital visits. But here's what nobody tells you. One natural powder added to coffee can help restore stamina in days, not months. I've watched this for decades. Two people, same age, same habits, same coffee every morning. One slowly stiffens, weakens, and fades. The other stays steady, strong, and alert well into later life. The difference is not luck. It's not genetics. It's not extreme discipline. It's what happens every single morning. There is a quiet philosophy of aging that most of modern medicine has forgotten, but one physician understood it deeply. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who lived past 100, taught that health is not changed by dramatic events. It is shaped by small, gentle habits repeated daily. He said, "Health is not changed by rare events, but by what we do every morning." That sentence should stop you in your tracks, because after 60, mornings become a biological checkpoint. You wake up and notice it. Stiffness in the joints, heaviness in the legs, slower thinking, low motivation, energy that feels fragile instead of reliable. We tell ourselves this is just aging, but I need you to understand something important. Those sensations are not the day breaking you down. They are signs that the body was not primed correctly. The aging body does not fail loudly. It fails quietly, metabolically, one morning at a time. And coffee, that familiar, comforting ritual, sits right in the middle of this story. Another physician explains it in modern terms. Dr. Mark Hyman reminds us that food and drinks are not just calories. They are information. They tell your cells whether to move toward repair or toward decline. Your coffee is information. And right now, most seniors are sending the wrong message without realizing it. Here is the promise I want to make you today. There is one tasteless powder, simple, inexpensive, ignored by the health industry, that can turn your morning coffee from a stress signal into a support signal. When added the right way, it improves strength signaling, stabilizes energy, and supports aging resilience at the cellular level. This is not a supplement trend. This is not biohacking. This is not something extreme. It is an upgrade to something you already do. And we're going to walk through this calmly, step by step, in 4 insights. Each one builds on the last. And the final one, the one most people never hear, explains why timing and dose matter more than brand, marketing, or cost. So stay with me, because longevity is not built by doing more. It's built by doing the right small thing, quietly, every morning. For most of your life, coffee felt like a harmless boost. You drank it, felt more awake, and moved on with your day. That relationship worked when the body was younger and more forgiving. After 60, the biology changes. Coffee by itself becomes a very different signal to an aging nervous system. Not good or bad by nature, just incomplete. Here's what happens beneath the surface. Coffee stimulates cortisol and adrenaline. These are stress hormones. In a younger body, that surge is absorbed easily. Muscles recover, energy stabilizes, the system resets. In an older body, the same signal lands differently. Cortisol stays elevated longer. Adrenaline rises faster than energy production can support. Instead of clean alertness, the body borrows energy from muscle tissue and blood sugar reserves. It feels like a lift, but it is more like a withdrawal. That's why so many seniors describe the same pattern without realizing it's connected to their morning routine. Energy rises quickly. Focus sharpens briefly. Then, late morning arrives with shakiness, weakness, irritability, or a sudden need to sit down. Nothing dramatic, nothing alarming, just a quiet drop-off that gets explained away as normal aging. But biologically, it's a mismatch. Coffee alone is like revving a cold engine. The RPMs jump, but the internal parts are not yet protected. Over time, that repeated stress adds wear instead of strength. The aging body doesn't need more stimulation. It needs buffering. Without that buffer, coffee becomes a stress amplifier. With the right support, it becomes a delivery system. This distinction matters because after 60, muscle tissue is far more sensitive to stress signals. When cortisol spikes without counterbalance, muscle breakdown quietly increases. Legs weaken first. Balance follows. Confidence in movement slowly erodes. That's why mornings matter so much. The body interprets the first signals of the day as instructions. They set the tone for how muscles respond to movement, how the brain manages focus, and how stable energy feels for the next several hours. When coffee arrives alone, the message is urgency without support. When coffee arrives with the right stabilizing input, the message changes entirely. Stress hormones flatten. Energy becomes usable instead of borrowed. Muscles receive a signal that preservation matters. Nothing extreme is required. Nothing complicated is involved. The shift happens at the level of signaling, not willpower. And once this is understood, it becomes clear why so many well-meaning seniors feel like they're doing everything right, yet still feel weaker year after year. The morning message was incomplete. And that brings us to the deeper issue underneath all of this. Why aging muscles don't wait until dinner to decide whether they will weaken or stay responsive. For decades, we were taught that muscle care happens at meals. Eat protein at lunch, eat protein at dinner, and everything will take care of itself. That idea works poorly after 60, not because protein stops working, but because aging muscle changes how it listens. There is a quiet biological shift that occurs with age called anabolic resistance. It means muscle tissue becomes less responsive to the same signals that once kept it strong. The nutrients arrive, but the message is faint. The body hears them too late or not clearly enough. By the time dinner arrives, the day's opportunity has already passed. Muscle tissue behaves more like a system on a timer. If it is not gently activated early, it stays dim all day. Later inputs still matter, but they land on tissue that has already decided to conserve rather than build. This is why so many seniors describe a frustrating pattern. They eat adequate protein, they stay reasonably active, yet every year, strength declines anyway. The problem is not effort, it is timing. Morning is when muscle tissue decides whether it will remain metabolically engaged or quietly shut down. The first hours after waking shape how responsive muscles remain to movement, nutrition, and circulation for the rest of the day. When the morning passes without a supportive signal, muscle fibers slip into energy-saving mode. They become reluctant, protective, less adaptable. This is especially noticeable in the legs. The legs are large, energy-hungry tissues. When they don't receive an early signal that energy will be available and supported, they begin to downshift. Steps feel heavier. Standing requires more effort. Balance feels less automatic. People often interpret this as weakness. In reality, it is unresponsiveness. The body is not failing, it is conserving. Once this is understood, a subtle truth emerges. Muscle preservation is not about flooding the system with protein later. It is about informing the body early that muscle is worth maintaining today. That early message does not need to be loud, it needs to be clear. When muscles receive that clarity in the morning, they remain receptive. Later meals work better, light movement feels easier, energy distributes more evenly instead of collapsing into fatigue. Without that signal, even the best dinner arrives too late to fully reverse the day's decision. This is where coffee becomes relevant again. Because coffee is already a morning signal. It already speaks loudly to the nervous system. The question is whether it speaks in a way muscles can understand or ignore. And that brings us to the quiet powder that changes how coffee communicates with the aging body at a cellular level. There is an assumption many people carry into later life without realizing it, that anything helpful must be complicated. That support for aging muscles and brain energy must come from elaborate routines, harsh stimulants, or long lists of pills. But the body does not work that way. At the cellular level, aging is not about lacking effort. It is about inefficient energy use. Every movement, every thought, every step out of a chair depends on a molecule called ATP. ATP is the unit of usable energy inside your cells. When ATP is recycled efficiently, muscles feel responsive, the brain feels clear, and fatigue stays manageable. When ATP recycling slows, everything feels heavier than it should. This is where creatine enters the conversation. Creatine monohydrate is not a stimulant. It does not push the nervous system. It does not demand more from the body. Instead, it supports the recycling of ATP, allowing cells to reuse energy instead of constantly scrambling to create more. Think of it as a rechargeable battery pack. Without it, cells drain quickly and must rely on emergency systems. With it, energy circulates more smoothly and predictably. What makes this especially relevant with age is that creatine supports more than muscle strength. It improves cellular hydration, stabilizes energy availability, and supports brain energy metabolism. areas that quietly decline over time. That's why the effect feels different than caffeine. Caffeine stimulates. Creatine stabilizes. When creatine is present, coffee's signal changes. Instead of triggering urgency without support, it arrives alongside a resource that helps cells handle the demand. Energy becomes usable instead of borrowed. Muscles feel more cooperative. Mental clarity lasts longer into the day. This is why many older adults describe subtle but meaningful shifts within weeks. Standing feels easier. Movements feel less hesitant. Thinking feels steadier instead of sharp and then foggy. Nothing dramatic, nothing artificial, just a sense that the body is no longer fighting itself. Creatine is tasteless. It blends easily into warm liquids. It does not announce itself, and that is part of its strength. It works quietly, at the level where aging actually occurs. When added to coffee, it doesn't compete with caffeine. It reshapes how caffeine is interpreted by the body. The message shifts from stress to support. And while this alone is helpful, the most important insight is still ahead. Because creatine behaves very differently in older bodies than it does in younger ones. That difference is why this simple powder has been misunderstood for decades, and why it may be more valuable now than at any earlier point in life. For years, creatine was framed as something for younger bodies, athletic bodies, bodies trying to push limits. That framing missed the point. Creatine does not work because someone is young. It works because cells need efficient energy recycling, and that need increases, not decreases, with age. After 60, the body's own creatine production quietly declines. At the same time, muscle tissue and brain cells become more dependent on rapid, reliable energy reuse. The margin for inefficiency narrows. When energy recycling falters, the result is not dramatic collapse. It is instability. Movements feel less confident. Balance feels less automatic. Thinking feels effortful instead of fluid. In younger people, creatine often feels subtle because their systems already produce and recycle energy efficiently. Adding more does not change much. In older adults, the same input fills a widening gap. That is why the effect feels so different. Creatine becomes a form of cellular insurance, not against injury or illness, but against the slow erosion of energy reliability that defines aging. Think of it as retirement insurance for cells. The longer you live, the more valuable it becomes. What matters most here is not intensity, cycling, or loading phases. Those ideas came from athletic culture, not aging biology. Older cells respond best to consistency and predictability. Quiet support, delivered daily, allows systems to recalibrate without stress. Hydration supports this process because creatine draws water into cells, improving function from the inside. Over time, this creates a sense of internal steadiness rather than stimulation. That steadiness is what many people notice first. Younger individuals often feel very little. Older individuals feel something return. Not power, not excitement, stability. And stability is the foundation of independence. When energy is stable, walking becomes smoother. When walking is smoother, confidence rises. When confidence rises, movement continues. And movement is what preserves life quality. This is why creatine, quietly added to an existing habit, fits so naturally into later life. It does not ask the body to do more. It helps the body do what it already does, more efficiently. Conclusion. Long life is rarely shaped by dramatic changes. It is shaped by gentle consistency. This brings us back to the wisdom of Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who reminded us that the body responds best when care arrives quietly and regularly. The body responds best when care arrives quietly and regularly. Your morning coffee is already a ritual. It already happens. Nothing new is being added to your life. Something is simply being refined. And through the lens of Dr. Mark Hyman, that refinement matters, because the right input can turn a habit into medicine, information into repair. Stronger mornings lead to steadier walking. Steadier walking leads to clearer thinking. Clearer thinking leads to confidence in daily life. This is not about chasing youth. It is about supporting resilience. One small scoop, once a day. Supporting years of strength, energy, and independence. You are not broken. Your strategy was simply incomplete. There is a quiet misunderstanding about aging that creates far more fear than necessary. Many people imagine decline as something sudden, as if the body wakes up one day and simply stops cooperating. That is not how aging works. What I have seen over decades is something much subtler and far more important to understand. The body ages through small, repeated biological decisions made every single day, often long before symptoms become obvious. Morning is when those decisions are made. When you wake up, the body does not just stretch and open its eyes, it takes inventory. It measures available energy, stress hormones, hydration, and whether key tissues like muscle and brain are supported or strained. This assessment happens quietly, through chemistry, not thought. The body then adjusts how generous it will be with energy for the rest of the day. This is why mornings feel different after 60. Energy feels less predictable. Muscles feel slower to respond. Thinking feels like it takes more effort. These sensations are not signs of failure. They are signs that the body is being cautious. With age, the body becomes conservative by necessity. It protects what it is unsure it can replace. If early signals suggest stress, scarcity, or instability, systems downshift. Muscle becomes less responsive. Movement feels heavier. The brain prioritizes efficiency over sharpness. None of this is dramatic. It is protective. What confuses many people is that these changes do not feel connected to any single choice. They feel like time itself is the cause. But biology does not work in broad concepts like time. It works in patterns. Small signals, repeated consistently, carry more weight than rare intense efforts. This is why dramatic health interventions often disappoint later in life. They arrive loudly, infrequently, and with stress attached. The aging body interprets them as disruption rather than support. Consistency, on the other hand, builds trust. When the body receives calm, predictable support early in the day, it relaxes its grip. Energy becomes more available. Muscles remain engaged. Balance improves because the nervous system is no longer operating in conservation mode. The result is not excitement or sudden strength. It is stability. Stability is the real currency of healthy aging. Stable energy allows movement to stay natural instead of cautious. Natural movement preserves balance. Balance preserves independence. Independence preserves confidence. This chain does not begin with motivation or discipline. It begins with chemistry arriving on time. That is why small morning habits matter so much. Not because they are dramatic, but because they are dependable. When support is woven into something the body already expects, it is accepted without resistance. There is no strain, no pushback, no feeling of effort. Over time, this quiet consistency reshapes how the body allocates energy. Mornings feel less fragile. Days feel more predictable. Life regains a rhythm that many people assume is gone forever. That is not reversal. It is alignment. And alignment is what allows aging to remain steady rather than steep.